Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Talk community. I am Julia, and I am so happy you are here with me today. I want to start by saying something that I think will touch your heart. Learning English is not just about studying a language, it is about opening doors to new possibilities, new connections, and new versions of yourself. I know exactly how you feel right now because I have been there too. That feeling when you understand everything in your head but the words just do not come out naturally when you need to speak. That moment when you freeze up because you are worried about making mistakes. The frustration when you know what you want to say but you cannot express it the way you imagine it in your mind. Today I want to talk to you about something that will change everything for you. We are going to explore how to speak English naturally every day. And I promise you this is going to be different from everything you have heard before. You see, most people think they need to learn thousands of complicated rules, memorize huge vocabulary lists, and speak perfectly before they can feel confident. But here is the truth that nobody talks about. The secret to speaking English naturally is not about being perfect. It is about being authentic and real. It is about using simple words to express your true thoughts and feelings. I have met so many English learners from all over the world, and they all share the same struggle. They complicate everything. They think they need to sound like native speakers from day one. They believe they must use fancy vocabulary to impress others. But this is exactly what keeps them stuck and frustrated. The beautiful truth is that natural English is actually simple English. When native speakers talk to their friends, they use basic words. When they express their emotions, they choose simple phrases that everyone can understand. Right now, I want you to think about your own journey. Have you ever felt scared to speak English in front of other people? Have you ever stayed quiet in a conversation because you were afraid of saying something wrong? If you are nodding your head right now, please hit that like button because you are not alone in this struggle. Thousands of people listening to this podcast have felt exactly the same way. This feeling is completely normal, and it shows that you care about improving yourself. The reason I started the English Talk community was to create a safe space where you can learn without judgment, where you can make mistakes and still feel supported, where you can discover that speaking English naturally is not about perfection, but about connection and communication. Today, I am going to share with you a completely different approach that will transform how you think about practicing English every single day. You do not need to wait until you are ready. You do not need to study for months before you start speaking. You do not need to feel confident before you begin practicing. The magic happens when you start exactly where you are right now, with exactly the words you already know. Every single person who speaks English fluently today started exactly where you are sitting right now. They had the same fears, the same doubts, and the same dreams of communicating freely in English. If you have ever wondered why some people seem to learn English so quickly while others struggle for years, I am about to reveal the secret. It has nothing to do with talent or natural ability. It has everything to do with changing your daily habits in very small but powerful ways. The people who succeed are not the ones who study the hardest or know the most vocabulary. They are the ones who find ways to use English naturally in their everyday life, even when nobody is watching or listening. So before we dive into these life-changing strategies, I want you to do something for me. I want you to subscribe to this channel if you believe that you deserve to speak English with confidence. Hit that subscribe button if you are ready to stop making excuses and start making progress. And most importantly, stay with me for the next few minutes because what I am about to share with you will completely change your relationship with the English language forever. Let me tell you a story that will change everything you think about speaking English. There was a young woman named Maria who lived in Lisbon and worked at one of the beautiful hotels in the city center. Every single day, Maria would see tourists from all around the world walking through the hotel lobby, and she knew she needed to speak English with them. But here is what happened. Maria was absolutely terrified of opening her mouth because she thought her English was not good enough. She believed that to impress these international guests, she needed to use sophisticated vocabulary and perfect sentence structures. Maria would spend her free time studying complex English expressions and trying to memorize difficult words that she thought would make her sound professional and intelligent. She would practice phrases like, "I would be delighted to assist you with your inquiry," instead of simply saying, "How can I help you?" She thought that using bigger words would make people respect her more and think she was really good at English. but every time a tourist approached her desk, Maria would freeze up completely. The complicated words would disappear from her mind, and she would end up saying nothing at all. One busy summer day, Maria was working the afternoon shift when a family from Germany approached her desk. They looked lost and confused, and Maria could see they really needed help. The father was holding a map and pointing in different directions while talking to his wife and children. Maria felt her heart racing because she knew she had to help them, but all those fancy phrases she had memorized just vanished from her memory. In that moment of panic, Maria did something different. She took a deep breath and said the simplest thing that came to her mind. She said, "How can I help you?" with a genuine smile. The German father immediately smiled back and explained that they were looking for a good restaurant nearby. Instead of trying to use complicated vocabulary, Maria kept everything simple. She said, "There is a nice restaurant 2 blocks from here." She pointed in the right direction and added, "They have great food and good prices." The family thanked her warmly, and as they were leaving, Maria said, "Have a nice day," with real warmth in her voice. Something magical happened in that moment. Maria realized that these simple words had created a real connection with these people. What Maria discovered that day changed her entire approach to speaking English. She realized that communication is not about impressing people with big words. It is about connecting with them as human beings and helping them understand what you want to share. From that day forward, Maria started using simple, clear phrases in all her conversations with hotel guests. She would say "good morning" instead of trying to remember complex greetings. She would ask, "Do you need help?" instead of formal expressions she could barely remember. The most amazing thing started happening. The more Maria used simple English, the more confident she became. Guests began to smile more when they talked to her. They understood her clearly, and they appreciated her helpful attitude. Maria was not trying to sound like someone else anymore. She was just being herself and expressing her genuine desire to help people. The simple phrases became natural and automatic. She did not have to think about them anymore because they flowed naturally from her heart. You know what happened next? Maria's manager started receiving compliments about her excellent customer service. Guests would mention specifically how helpful and friendly Maria was during their stay. The hotel management recognized her efforts and she received a promotion within 6 months. None of this happened because Maria learned to speak perfect English. It happened because she learned to speak real English, the kind of English that creates genuine connections between people. This is exactly what I want you to understand about your own English journey. You might be just like Maria was before her transformation. You might be thinking that you need to learn more complicated words before you can start speaking confidently. You might believe that people will judge you if you use simple vocabulary. But Maria's story shows us something incredible. The most powerful communication happens when you speak from your heart using words you truly understand and can use naturally. Now I want to share with you the first practical strategy that will transform your English speaking ability starting today. This is something you can do right now, in this exact moment, without any preparation or special materials. I call this technique "Start Small, Think Big," and it is based on a simple truth that most English learners never realize. You already know more English than you think you do. The problem is not that you do not have enough vocabulary. The problem is that you are not using the words you already know in a natural, daily way. Here is what I want you to do right now. Think about 3 simple English phrases that you absolutely know you can say correctly. These should be phrases so basic that you feel completely confident about them. Maybe it is "good morning," or "thank you," or "how are you," or "I am fine," or "see you later." Choose 3 phrases that feel natural and easy for you. Do not pick complicated expressions or sentences that you are not sure about. We are starting with what you know, not with what you think you should learn next. The magic happens when you start using these 3 simple phrases in your mind during your daily activities. Let me explain exactly how this works. When you wake up in the morning and you are making your coffee, instead of thinking in your native language, try thinking "good morning" to yourself. When you are walking to work or to the store, practice saying "how are you" in your head. When you finish eating lunch, think "thank you," as if you are thanking someone for the meal. This might sound too simple, but this is exactly how natural English speakers develop their automatic responses. Most people make a huge mistake when they try to practice English. They think they need to have a conversation partner, or they need to be in a formal study session. But the truth is that your most powerful practice happens when you are alone with your own thoughts. When you are waiting for the bus, instead of just standing there thinking about your day in your native language, this is the perfect time to practice your 3 phrases. You can repeat them mentally, you can imagine using them in different situations, you can even picture yourself saying them to different people. The beautiful thing about this technique is that nobody knows you are practicing. You are not embarrassing yourself in front of other people. You are not worried about making mistakes because you are just thinking. But what happens in your brain is incredible. Every time you use these English phrases in your daily mental routine, you are training your brain to think in English naturally. You are creating neural pathways that make English feel more automatic and less foreign. I want you to understand why starting small is actually the fastest way to achieve big results. When you try to learn too many new things at once, your brain gets overwhelmed and you end up forgetting everything. But when you focus on just 3 simple phrases and you use them consistently every single day, they become part of your automatic thinking process. After a few weeks, these phrases will feel so natural that you will not even realize you are thinking in English. Here is the most important part of this strategy. You need to connect these English phrases to your real daily activities. Do not just repeat them randomly. Use good morning when you actually wake up. Think thank you when you actually finish a meal. Say, how are you in your mind when you see people on the street, even if you are not talking to them. This connection between English phrases and real-life situations is what makes the language feel natural and meaningful. Let me give you some specific examples of how to apply this throughout your day. When you are drinking your morning coffee, think, this coffee is good, or I like this coffee. When you are walking somewhere, think, I am walking, or nice day today. When you see something beautiful, think, that is nice, or I like that. These are not complicated sentences. They are simple thoughts that native speakers have all the time without even realizing it. The reason this works so well is because you are not forcing yourself to learn new vocabulary. You are taking words you already know and making them part of your natural thinking process. This is exactly how children learn their first language. They do not study vocabulary lists. They connect simple words and phrases to their daily experiences until those words become automatic and natural. Right now, while you are listening to my voice, I want you to choose your 3 phrases. Think about which English expressions you feel most confident about. These will be your starting point for the next 2 weeks. Every day, during your normal activities, you will practice these phrases mentally. You will be amazed at how quickly they start to feel natural and how much more confident you become about using English in your daily thoughts. Let me tell you about Thomas, a university student from Berlin who completely transformed his relationship with English using a technique that changed everything for him. Thomas was studying engineering, and he knew that speaking good English would open many doors for his future career. But like so many people, Thomas felt stuck. He could read English textbooks, he could understand movies with subtitles, but when it came to actually thinking and speaking in English, his mind would go blank. Thomas tried many different methods to improve his English. He took classes, he used language learning apps, he even tried to find conversation partners online. But nothing seemed to make English feel natural for him. The words always felt forced and artificial when he tried to speak. He would translate everything from German to English in his head, which made conversations slow and exhausting. Thomas was getting frustrated because he felt like he was not making real progress despite all his efforts. One morning, Thomas was walking to his university campus like he did every day. It was a beautiful spring morning, and he was enjoying the fresh air and sunshine. For some reason, instead of thinking about his day in German like he always did, Thomas decided to try something different. He started describing his walk to himself in English. He thought, I am walking to university. The sun is shining. I feel good today. These were very simple thoughts, nothing complicated or fancy. What happened next surprised Thomas completely. As he continued walking, he found himself naturally thinking more English phrases. The birds are singing. People are going to work. I like this morning. Thomas was not forcing these thoughts or translating them from German. They were just flowing naturally in his mind. For the first time, English felt effortless and spontaneous. Thomas realized he was thinking in English without even trying. This discovery motivated Thomas to experiment more with thinking in English during his daily activities. When he was making breakfast, he would think, "I am making coffee. I am eating bread. This tastes good." When he was studying in the library, he would describe his actions mentally. "I am reading this book. I am taking notes. This is interesting information." These internal conversations became a natural part of his routine. The amazing thing was that Thomas started noticing English thoughts popping into his mind even when he was not consciously practicing. While waiting for the train, he might think, "The train is late today," without planning to think in English. During lunch with friends, he would catch himself thinking, "This food is delicious," before translating it back to German to speak with his friends. English was becoming a natural part of his thinking process. Thomas discovered something that most language learners never realize. The key to natural fluency is not studying more vocabulary or practicing more conversations. The key is training your brain to process daily life in English. When you narrate your own life in English, even silently in your head, you are building the mental pathways that make the language feel automatic and natural. After several weeks of this mental practice, Thomas noticed dramatic changes in his spoken English. When he had to speak English in class or with international students, the words came much more easily. He was not translating anymore. He was thinking directly in English and then speaking those thoughts. His confidence grew because English started feeling like a natural way to express himself, not like a foreign code he had to decode. Thomas also discovered that thinking in English made him more aware of his daily experiences. When you narrate your life in another language, you pay more attention to details and moments that you might normally ignore. Thomas found himself noticing small things like the color of the sky, the taste of his food, or the feeling of walking on different surfaces. This awareness made his English richer and more connected to real-life experiences. The most beautiful part of Thomas's transformation was that it happened gradually and naturally. He did not force himself to think complicated thoughts in English. He started with simple present tense descriptions of what he was doing in each moment. "I am sitting. I am writing. I am listening." These basic narrations slowly expanded into more detailed observations and eventually into natural, flowing thoughts. What I love about Thomas's story is that it shows how anyone can develop natural English fluency without spending money on classes or apps. Thomas used his normal daily activities as his English practice time. Every moment of his day became an opportunity to strengthen his connection with the English language. Walking, eating, studying, even lying in bed before sleep became chances to think in English. Thomas proved that consistency is more powerful than intensity when it comes to language learning. He did not spend hours each day studying English. Instead, he spent small moments throughout each day thinking in English. These moments added up to create a dramatic transformation in his fluency and confidence. Now I want to teach you one of the most powerful techniques for developing natural English fluency. And this is something you can start doing immediately without any special preparation. I call this the inner narrator technique, and it is exactly what Thomas discovered in Berlin. You are going to become the narrator of your own life, describing your daily actions and experiences in simple English, as they happen in real time. Here is how this technique works. Right now, as you are listening to my voice, you could be thinking, "I am listening to Julia. I am learning about English. I am sitting in my chair." These are simple descriptions of what you are actually doing in this moment. The magic happens when you make this internal narration a regular part of your daily routine. Instead of thinking about your activities in your native language, you start describing them to yourself in English. The beautiful thing about being your own narrator is that there is absolutely no pressure. Nobody can hear your thoughts, so you cannot make embarrassing mistakes. You cannot be judged by other people. You cannot fail because you are just practicing in the privacy of your own mind. This removes all the anxiety and fear that usually comes with trying to speak English with other people. You can practice freely and naturally without any stress. Start with the most basic actions using simple present continuous descriptions. When you wake up in the morning, think, "I am waking up. I am getting out of bed. I am walking to the bathroom." When you are making breakfast, narrate, "I am making coffee. I am putting bread in the toaster. I am eating my breakfast." These descriptions should be so simple that you feel completely confident about them. Do not try to use complicated vocabulary or complex sentence structures. The reason this technique is so effective is that it trains your brain to process English in real time, connected to actual experiences. When you describe "I am drinking water" while you are actually drinking water, your brain creates a strong connection between the English words and the real action. This is much more powerful than memorizing vocabulary lists or studying abstract phrases that are not connected to your real life. As you become more comfortable with basic narration, you can gradually add simple details to your descriptions. Instead of just thinking "I am walking," you can expand to "I am walking slowly," or "I am walking to the store," or "I am walking in the sunshine." These small additions happen naturally as you become more confident with the basic framework. You are not forcing complexity. You are allowing it to develop organically. I want you to understand that you only need to practice this technique for 5 minutes at a time throughout your day. You do not need to narrate every single moment of your life in English. Choose specific activities that you do regularly, like brushing your teeth, making coffee, or walking somewhere. During these 5-minute periods, commit to describing your actions in simple English. These short practice sessions will add up to create significant changes in how naturally English flows in your mind. The key to success with this technique is consistency, not perfection. It is much better to practice for 5 minutes every day than to practice for 1 hour once a week. Your brain needs regular, repeated exposure to English thinking patterns to make them feel natural and automatic. Even if you only do this during your morning coffee or your evening walk, that consistent daily practice will transform your relationship with English. Many people worry that their internal narration is too simple or too basic. Let me tell you something important. Simple narration is exactly what you want when you are building natural fluency. Native English speakers think in simple phrases most of the time. When I am making my morning coffee, I am not thinking complex thoughts. I am thinking basic things like, "This coffee smells good," or "I need more sugar," or "I am running late today." Simple thoughts are natural thoughts. One of the most amazing benefits of this inner narrator technique is that it helps English become emotionally connected to your real experiences. When you think "this food tastes delicious" while eating something you really enjoy, or "I feel happy today" when you are actually feeling good, you are creating positive emotional associations with English. The language becomes part of your real feelings and experiences instead of just being academic study material. You can practice this technique anywhere and anytime without anyone knowing what you are doing. While waiting in line at the store, you can think, "I am waiting in line." There are many people here. I am buying groceries. While sitting in traffic, you can narrate, "I am driving to work. The traffic is heavy today. I am listening to music." These moments that would normally be boring or frustrating become opportunities to strengthen your English fluency. Remember that the goal is not to think every single thought in English. The goal is to create regular moments throughout your day when English becomes your internal language. Start with just one activity today. Choose something you do every day, like drinking your morning coffee or brushing your teeth, and commit to narrating that activity in simple English. After a week, add another activity. Gradually, English narration will become a natural and enjoyable part of your daily routine. Let me share with you the incredible story of Sophie, a talented graphic designer from Paris who worked for an international marketing company. Sophie's job required her to present design concepts to clients from all over the world, which meant she had to speak English in professional video calls almost every day. But here is what was happening. Sophie was so terrified of making mistakes in English that she would spend hours before each meeting preparing exactly what she wanted to say, writing down every word and practicing her pronunciation over and over again. Sophie believed that her clients expected perfect English from her, and she was convinced that any mistake would make them think she was unprofessional or incompetent. Before every presentation, Sophie would feel her heart racing and her hands shaking because she was so worried about saying something wrong. She would avoid using words she was not completely sure about, which made her presentation sound robotic and unnatural. Sophie often felt frustrated because she had brilliant creative ideas, but she felt like her English was holding her back from expressing them clearly. The turning point came during a particularly important presentation with a client from London. Sophie had prepared everything perfectly, but in the middle of explaining her design concept, she made a small mistake. Instead of saying, "This design will attract customers," she accidentally said, "This design will attack customers." The moment those words came out of her mouth, Sophie felt mortified. She was sure this mistake had ruined her entire presentation and that the client would think she was completely unprofessional. But something unexpected happened. The client started laughing in a friendly way and said, "I think you mean attract, not attack, but I love your passion for this design." Then he continued the conversation naturally, asking Sophie more questions about her creative process. Sophie realized in that moment that this small mistake had not destroyed anything. In fact, the client seemed more relaxed and engaged after this human moment than he had been during her perfectly prepared opening. This experience opened Sophie's eyes to something revolutionary. She discovered that people actually appreciated her efforts to communicate more than they cared about perfect pronunciation or flawless vocabulary. After this meeting, Sophie started paying attention to how native English speakers actually talked in business situations. She noticed that they made small mistakes too. They used simple words instead of complex ones. And they focused on getting their message across clearly, rather than sounding academically perfect. Sophie decided to completely change her approach to English communication. Instead of spending hours memorizing perfect sentences, she started focusing on expressing her real thoughts and ideas, using the words she actually knew and felt comfortable with. When she was not sure about a word, instead of avoiding it completely, she would try to explain her idea in a different way or simply ask, "Is there a better word for this?" Her clients responded positively to this more authentic and interactive communication style. The most amazing transformation happened when Sophie stopped trying to hide her learning process and started embracing it openly. During one presentation, she paused and said, "Sorry, I am looking for the right English word to explain this concept." The client immediately offered to help, and they had a collaborative conversation about the design that led to even better ideas. Sophie realized that her learning journey was actually creating deeper connections with her clients rather than creating barriers. Sophie also discovered that when she stopped being afraid of making mistakes, she started taking more creative risks in her English communication. She began using metaphors to explain her design ideas, sharing personal stories about her creative inspiration, and expressing her genuine enthusiasm for projects. Her presentations became much more engaging and memorable because she was speaking from her heart rather than from a script she had memorized. What I find most inspiring about Sophie's story is how she learned to see mistakes as opportunities for connection rather than sources of shame. When she would mix up words or use an unusual phrase instead of getting embarrassed, she would laugh about it and continue with her explanation. This relaxed attitude made everyone in her meetings feel more comfortable and created an atmosphere where real communication could happen. Sophie's clients started giving her feedback that her presentations had become much more dynamic and persuasive. They appreciated her authentic passion for design and her willingness to engage in real conversations about their projects. Sophie's career actually accelerated after she stopped trying to speak perfect English, because her natural creativity and personality were finally able to shine through her communication. The lesson that changed everything for Sophie was understanding that communication is about connecting with people, not about demonstrating language perfection. When she shifted her focus from avoiding mistakes to sharing her ideas clearly and enthusiastically, everything changed. Her English actually improved faster because she was using it more freely and getting more real practice in natural conversations. Sophie now mentors other non-native English speakers in her company, and she always tells them the same thing that transformed her own experience. She says, "Your ideas are more important than your accent. Your passion is more valuable than your perfect vocabulary. People want to understand what you have to offer, not judge how you say it." This mindset shift has helped dozens of her colleagues become more confident and effective English communicators. Now I want to share with you a principle that will completely change how you approach English communication. And this is something that even native speakers need to remember sometimes. The principle is simple but incredibly powerful. Clarity always wins over perfection. What this means is that it is much better to express your ideas using simple, clear words that everyone can understand than to try to impress people with complicated vocabulary that might confuse your message. I see so many English learners making the same mistake that Sophie made before her transformation. They think that using big, sophisticated words will make them sound more intelligent or more professional. But here's the truth that nobody talks about. When you use words that you are not completely comfortable with, your communication becomes unclear and confusing. People cannot understand what you are trying to say, and that defeats the entire purpose of communication. Let me give you a practical example of how this works in real conversations. Imagine you want to tell someone that you enjoyed a movie you watched last night. You could try to say, "The cinematographic experience was extraordinarily compelling and intellectually stimulating." Or you could simply say, "I really liked that movie. It was interesting and made me think." Which message is clearer? Which one sounds more natural and genuine? The simple version communicates your meaning much more effectively. The beautiful truth is that native English speakers use simple language most of the time in their daily conversations. When I talk to my friends about a movie I enjoyed, I do not say it was cinematographically compelling. I say, "It was really good," or "I loved it," or "You should watch it." Simple words carry powerful meaning when they come from a genuine place. Complex words often create distance between people instead of bringing them closer together. Here is your practical strategy for applying this principle every day. Whenever you want to express an idea in English, always choose the simplest word you know that conveys your meaning. If you want to say something is big, use big instead of trying to remember words like enormous or gigantic. If you want to say you are happy, use happy instead of searching for words like elated or euphoric. The simple word that you know well is always better than the complex word you are not sure about. This approach will transform your confidence because you will be speaking from a place of certainty rather than uncertainty. When you use words you truly understand and feel comfortable with, your voice becomes stronger and more natural. You stop hesitating and second-guessing yourself because you know exactly what you want to say, and you know you can say it clearly. I want you to understand that this is not about limiting your vocabulary or avoiding learning new words. This is about building a foundation of clear communication using the words you already know well. As you become more confident with simple, clear expression, you will naturally expand your vocabulary over time. But the expansion will happen gradually and organically, not through forced memorization of words you cannot use naturally. One of the biggest advantages of focusing on clarity over complexity is that people actually listen to you better when you speak simply and directly. When someone uses overly complex language, listeners often get distracted trying to decode the meaning instead of focusing on the message. But when you speak clearly and simply, people can focus entirely on your ideas and connect with what you are sharing. Think about the most effective communicators you know, whether they are teachers, leaders, or even entertainers. They all have one thing in common. They express complex ideas using simple, accessible language. They understand that the goal of communication is not to show how smart they are, but to share their thoughts in a way that creates understanding and connection with their audience. Here is another practical way to apply this principle. When you are about to speak English, ask yourself this question: what is the simplest way I can express this idea? Do not ask yourself, what is the most impressive way to say this? Focus on clarity and directness rather than trying to sound sophisticated. This shift in mindset will immediately improve your communication effectiveness. I also want you to remember that using simple language does not make you sound less intelligent. In fact, the ability to explain complex ideas using simple words is a sign of deep understanding and communication skill. Some of the most respected thinkers and leaders in the world are known for their ability to make complicated concepts accessible to everyone. When you embrace clarity over perfection, you also become more authentic in your communication. Instead of trying to sound like someone else or impress people with words you do not really understand, you start expressing your genuine thoughts and feelings using language that feels natural to you. This authenticity creates much stronger connections with the people you are talking to. Practice this approach in your daily English thinking and speaking. When you catch yourself reaching for a complicated word, pause and ask if there is a simpler way to express the same idea. Most of the time, you will find that the simple version is not only clearer, but also more powerful and memorable. I want to tell you about Marco, a passionate chef who worked in a busy restaurant in Madrid and dreamed of opening his own international fusion restaurant someday. Marco knew that mastering English would be essential for his career goals, because he wanted to learn cooking techniques from chefs around the world and eventually attract international customers to his future restaurant. But Marco faced a challenge that many of you probably understand very well. He lived in Madrid where everyone spoke Spanish, he worked in a Spanish-speaking kitchen, and he had very few opportunities to practice English in his daily life. Marco felt frustrated because he was motivated to learn English, but he could not find natural ways to incorporate it into his busy schedule. He worked long hours in the restaurant, and when he came home exhausted, the last thing he wanted to do was sit with textbooks or language learning apps. Marco tried taking evening English classes, but his work schedule was unpredictable, and he often had to miss lessons because of late shifts at the restaurant. One evening, Marco was at home trying to perfect a new pasta recipe he wanted to add to the restaurant menu. He was looking for inspiration online when he accidentally clicked on a cooking video that was in English instead of Spanish. Instead of switching to a Spanish video immediately, Marco decided to watch a few minutes to see if he could understand anything. The chef in the video was making a similar pasta dish, and Marco found that he could follow most of the instructions because cooking vocabulary is often visual and practical. This gave Marco an incredible idea that changed everything for him. He realized that he could combine his passion for cooking with his desire to learn English. Marco started watching English cooking videos every time he practiced new recipes at home. At first, he would pause the videos frequently to understand what the chef was saying, but gradually he found that his comprehension was improving because he was learning English in a context that he already understood and loved. Marco took this idea even further. He started reading recipe websites in English and trying to follow international recipes using English instructions. When he was cooking at home, he would repeat the recipe steps out loud in English, practicing phrases like, heat the oil in a large pan, or add salt and pepper to taste, or cook for 10 minutes until golden brown. This turned his home cooking time into natural English practice sessions that felt enjoyable rather than forced or academic. The transformation in Marco's English ability was remarkable, but what happened next was even more amazing. Marco decided to change his phone settings to English, which meant that all his apps, messages, and notifications were now in English. At first, this felt confusing, but within a few days, Marco was naturally learning practical vocabulary related to technology, time, weather, and daily activities. His phone became a constant, gentle English learning companion that was always with him. Marco also started following international chefs and food bloggers on social media, but instead of following Spanish accounts, he chose to follow English-speaking chefs from different countries. This meant that every time he checked social media during his breaks at work, he was exposed to English content about topics that genuinely interested him. Marco was learning about new cooking techniques, international ingredients, and restaurant trends, while simultaneously improving his English comprehension. The most creative part of Marco's approach was how he started using English during his actual work in the restaurant kitchen. Even though his colleagues spoke Spanish, Marco began thinking through recipes and cooking processes in English in his own mind. When he was preparing ingredients, he would mentally narrate his actions in English. I am chopping onions. I am heating the olive oil. I am adding garlic to the pan. This internal English narration became a natural part of his cooking routine. Marco's colleagues at the restaurant started noticing his growing confidence with English when international customers would visit. Instead of asking other staff members to translate, Marco began communicating directly with English-speaking customers about menu items and cooking methods. His genuine passion for food combined with his improving English skills created memorable experiences for these international visitors. After 6 months of integrating English into his cooking routine, Marco's English had improved dramatically without feeling like traditional studying. He was thinking in English about topics he cared about, learning vocabulary that was immediately useful in his professional life, and building confidence through practical daily application. Marco proved that you do not need to live in an English-speaking country to create rich opportunities for English practice. The key to Marco's success was that he connected English learning to activities he was already doing and topics he was already passionate about. Instead of adding English study as another task to his busy schedule, he transformed his existing interests and routines into English learning opportunities. This made the practice feel natural, enjoyable, and sustainable over time. Marco's story shows us that creativity and personal interest are much more powerful than formal study methods when it comes to developing natural English fluency. By connecting English to his professional passion and daily activities, Marco created an immersive English environment, even while living in Madrid and working in a Spanish-speaking restaurant. Now I want to share with you a strategy that will transform your daily environment into a natural English learning space. And the beautiful thing is that you can start implementing this immediately without spending any money or dramatically changing your routine. This technique is all about creating small pockets of English exposure throughout your day so that the language becomes a natural part of your life, rather than something you only encounter during formal study sessions. The secret that Marco discovered in Madrid is something that anyone can apply regardless of where they live or what language is spoken around them. You can create your own personal English environment by making simple changes to the things you already do every day. These small modifications will gradually surround you with English in a way that feels natural and effortless rather than forced or overwhelming. Let me start with one of the most powerful changes you can make today. Change the language setting on your phone to English. This might feel scary at first, but think about how often you use your phone throughout the day. Every time you check the time, read a notification, or use an app, you will be seeing English words. Your phone will become a constant, gentle teacher that exposes you to practical vocabulary related to technology, time, weather, and daily activities without you even realizing you are learning. Another simple but incredibly effective strategy is to start following social media accounts that post content in English about topics you already enjoy. If you love cooking, follow English-speaking chefs. If you enjoy fitness, follow English fitness accounts. If you are interested in travel, follow travel bloggers who post in English. This way, every time you scroll through social media during your breaks or free time, you are naturally exposed to English content about subjects that genuinely interest you. Music is another powerful tool for creating an English environment around yourself. Start listening to English songs during activities where you normally listen to music. While you are commuting, exercising, or doing household tasks, let English music be your soundtrack. You do not need to understand every word or analyze the lyrics. Just let the rhythm and flow of English become familiar to your ears. Over time, you will start picking up phrases and expressions naturally without conscious effort. The key principle here is integration rather than addition. Instead of adding new English study activities to your already busy schedule, you are transforming activities you already do into opportunities for natural English exposure. This makes the practice sustainable because you are not creating extra work for yourself. You are simply adjusting the language of content you already consume. Consider changing your entertainment habits gradually. If you normally watch videos online, try watching some content in English with subtitles in your native language at first, then gradually transition to English subtitles, and eventually to no subtitles at all. Choose content about topics you already find interesting so that you stay engaged even when the language is challenging. Your genuine interest in the subject will help you understand more than you expect. Even small changes like setting your computer or tablet to English can create valuable exposure opportunities. When you see menu options, error messages, or system notifications in English repeatedly, you naturally learn practical vocabulary that native speakers use with technology. These words become familiar through repetition rather than through memorization. Here is something important to remember about creating your English environment. Start with just one change and let it become comfortable before adding another. If you try to change everything at once, you might feel overwhelmed and give up. But if you change your phone language this week, add English music next week, and follow English social media accounts the week after that, you will gradually build a rich English environment that feels natural and manageable. The beauty of this approach is that it works with your natural daily rhythms rather than against them. You are not forcing yourself to sit down and study English at specific times. Instead, English becomes woven into the fabric of your normal day. While you are waiting for the bus, checking your phone, or listening to music while cooking, you are naturally practicing and improving your English without conscious effort. I want you to think about your typical day and identify 3 moments when you could easily incorporate English exposure. Maybe it is during your morning coffee when you check social media, during your commute when you listen to music, or in the evening when you watch videos online. These are perfect opportunities to surround yourself with English in a natural, pressure-free way. Remember that the goal is not to understand everything immediately. The goal is to create familiarity and comfort with English sounds, rhythms, and patterns. When you regularly expose yourself to English through content you enjoy, your brain starts recognizing patterns and absorbing the language naturally, even when you are not actively trying to learn. Choose one small change you can make today. It could be changing your phone language, following one English account on social media, or listening to one English song. Take that first step right now, and then build from there gradually over the coming weeks. Let me share with you the inspiring story of Elena, a dedicated librarian who worked in one of Rome's beautiful historic libraries. Elena had always been passionate about books and literature, but she felt limited because most of the international research and academic discussions in her field were conducted in English. She could read English texts slowly with a dictionary, but listening and speaking felt almost impossible. Elena was naturally shy and introverted, which made the idea of practicing English conversation with other people feel terrifying and overwhelming. Elena tried several traditional approaches to learning English. She enrolled in evening classes, but the group environment made her too nervous to participate actively. She attempted online conversation sessions, but the pressure of real-time communication caused her so much anxiety that she would often cancel her appointments at the last minute. Elena was frustrated because she genuinely wanted to improve her English, but every method she tried seemed to increase her stress rather than build her confidence. Elena's breakthrough came from an unexpected source. During her daily 40-minute train commute to work, she usually spent time reading Italian novels or magazines. One day, a colleague mentioned that she had been listening to audiobooks during her commute and found it much more relaxing than reading in the crowded train. This gave Elena an idea that would completely transform her English learning journey. Elena decided to try listening to simple English audiobooks during her daily commute. She started with very basic stories, children's books that use simple vocabulary and clear pronunciation. At first, Elena could only understand scattered words and phrases, but she was not discouraged because the stories were engaging and the voices were pleasant to listen to. She found that the rhythm and flow of spoken English was becoming familiar to her ears, even when she did not understand every word. What happened next was magical. Elena began repeating phrases she heard in the audiobooks, first silently in her mind, and then quietly under her breath during her train rides. Simple expressions like, "Once upon a time," or "It was a beautiful day," or "She walked slowly through the garden," became part of her internal vocabulary. Elena was not consciously studying these phrases. She was simply letting them flow through her mind as she listened to the stories. After several weeks of consistent audiobook listening, Elena started noticing something amazing. English phrases were appearing in her thoughts spontaneously, even when she was not listening to audiobooks. While organizing books at the library, she might think, "This is a heavy book," or "These books need to be returned to their proper place." Elena was developing an internal English voice that felt natural and unforced. The most remarkable moment in Elena's transformation came about 3 months after she started her audiobook routine. Elena woke up one morning and realized that she had been dreaming in English the night before. In her dream, she was having a conversation with a library patron about finding research materials, and the entire conversation had taken place in English. Elena felt amazed because dreaming in English meant that the language was becoming integrated into her subconscious mind. This dream experience gave Elena the confidence to start using English in small ways during her work at the library. When international visitors asked for help finding books, instead of immediately calling for a colleague who spoke English, Elena began trying to help them herself. She used simple phrases she had absorbed from her audiobooks like, "I can help you find that," or "This section has books about history," or "Let me show you where that is located." Elena discovered that her months of passive listening had created a foundation of natural pronunciation and rhythm that made her spoken English much clearer than she had expected. The international visitors could understand her easily, and they appreciated her willingness to communicate directly with them. Elena's confidence grew with each successful interaction, and she realized that all those hours of listening had been preparing her for real conversations. Elena's approach was beautiful because it was completely stress-free and naturally integrated into her existing routine. She was not sitting at a desk forcing herself to memorize vocabulary or practice pronunciation exercises. Instead, she was enjoying stories during her commute while simultaneously training her brain to process English naturally. The learning was happening subconsciously while she was relaxed and engaged with interesting content. The transformation in Elena's professional life was remarkable. She began accessing English research databases more confidently, participating in international library conferences online, and even corresponding with librarians from other countries via email. Elena's career opportunities expanded because she could now engage with the global academic community in her field. What I love most about Elena's story is that it shows how gentle, consistent exposure to English can create profound changes over time. Elena did not force herself to speak before she felt ready. She allowed her listening skills to develop naturally, which built a strong foundation for confident speaking when the opportunities arose. Her patient, regular practice created lasting results that transformed both her personal confidence and her professional capabilities. Elena proved that you do not need dramatic or intensive study methods to achieve significant English improvement. Sometimes the most powerful progress happens through gentle, enjoyable activities that you look forward to rather than activities that feel like work or create stress. Elena's daily audiobook routine became something she genuinely enjoyed, which made it sustainable and ultimately transformative. Now I want to teach you about one of the most powerful yet underrated techniques for developing natural English fluency, and this is something that Elena discovered during her audiobook journey without even realizing it. I call this technique conscious repetition, and it works by training your brain to automatically access English phrases when you need them most. The beauty of this method is that it uses your brain's natural learning patterns to make English feel effortless and spontaneous. Here's how conscious repetition works. Your brain learns through patterns and repetition, which is exactly how you learned your native language as a child. When you repeatedly use the same phrases in similar contexts, your brain creates strong neural pathways that make those phrases automatically available when you need them. Instead of struggling to remember vocabulary or construct sentences, the words flow naturally because they have become part of your automatic response system. The key to making this technique effective is choosing the right phrases to practice. You want to select 5 simple English phrases each week that you can actually use in your daily life. These should not be random vocabulary words or complex sentences from textbooks. They should be practical expressions that you can genuinely apply in real situations throughout your week. For example, you might choose phrases like, "That sounds interesting," or "I need to think about it," or "Thanks for your help," or "Have a great day." Once you have chosen your 5 phrases for the week, you practice them consciously during different activities throughout your day. This is not about sitting down for formal study sessions. This is about integrating these phrases into your natural thinking patterns while you are doing other things. While you are walking somewhere, repeat one of your phrases mentally several times. While you are waiting in line, practice another phrase in your mind. While you are doing household tasks, think through your phrases in different contexts. The magic happens when you practice these phrases in various situations and contexts throughout the week. Do not just repeat them mechanically like a robot. Instead, imagine using them in different conversations and scenarios. Picture yourself saying, "That sounds interesting," when a friend tells you about their weekend plans. Visualize using "Thanks for your help" when someone assists you with something. This contextual practice helps your brain understand when and how to use these phrases naturally. What makes conscious repetition so powerful is that it bridges the gap between passive learning and active use. Many people can understand English phrases when they hear them, but they struggle to remember those same phrases when they want to speak. Conscious repetition solves this problem by making useful phrases instantly accessible in your memory. When you need to express an idea, the right phrase is already there waiting for you. I want you to understand that this technique requires patience and consistency rather than intensity. You are not trying to memorize hundreds of phrases quickly. You are slowly building a foundation of automatically available expressions that will make your English communication feel natural and confident. 5 phrases per week might seem slow, but over the course of a year, you will have internalized over 250 useful expressions that you can use spontaneously. The repetition should feel conscious but not forced. You are not trying to exhaust yourself with endless practice. Instead, you are gently reinforcing these phrases throughout your day whenever you have small moments of mental downtime. While brushing your teeth, waiting for an elevator, or walking to your car, these are perfect opportunities to mentally practice your weekly phrases. One of the most important aspects of conscious repetition is celebrating your progress along the way. When you successfully use one of your practiced phrases in a real conversation, take a moment to feel proud of that achievement. When you notice yourself thinking in English using one of your repeated phrases, recognize that as evidence of your growing fluency. These small victories are building blocks that create lasting confidence and motivation. The technique becomes even more effective when you choose phrases that reflect your personality and communication style. If you are naturally polite and formal, choose phrases that match that style. If you are more casual and friendly, select expressions that feel authentic to who you are. The phrases should feel like natural extensions of your personality, not like foreign expressions you are trying to force into your speech. As you continue with conscious repetition week after week, you will notice that English phrases start appearing in your thoughts spontaneously, just like Elena experienced during her audiobook journey. You might find yourself thinking, "That sounds interesting," when you hear about something new, or "Thanks for your help" might pop into your mind when someone assists you, even if you are not speaking English at that moment. This spontaneous appearance of English phrases in your thoughts is a clear sign that the language is becoming integrated into your natural thinking patterns. It means you are developing genuine fluency rather than just memorizing vocabulary. The phrases are becoming part of your internal voice, which is exactly what happens when people become truly comfortable with a language. Remember that conscious repetition works best when combined with the other techniques we have discussed. While you are practicing your 5 weekly phrases, continue with your inner narration, maintain your English environment, and apply the principle of clarity over perfection. All of these approaches work together to create a comprehensive foundation for natural English fluency. Start this week by choosing 5 simple phrases that you genuinely want to be able to use in conversations. Write them down and commit to practicing them consciously throughout your daily activities. Be patient with the process and trust that these small, consistent efforts will create significant changes in your English fluency over time. Let me tell you about Andreas, a brilliant mechanical engineer from Hamburg who worked for a German automotive company that was expanding into international markets. Andreas had excellent technical knowledge and innovative ideas that could benefit his company's global projects, but he was held back by something that had nothing to do with his engineering skills. Andreas had developed such a strong mental barrier around speaking English that he would avoid any situation that might require him to communicate in English, even though this was limiting his career opportunities. Andreas understood English quite well when reading technical documents, and he could follow English presentations when his colleagues gave them. But when it came to actually speaking English himself, Andreas felt paralyzed by fear. He was convinced that his accent was terrible, that his vocabulary was insufficient, and that native English speakers would judge him harshly if he made mistakes. This fear had become so strong that Andreas would decline invitations to international conferences and avoid participating in video calls with English-speaking clients. The irony of Andreas's situation was that his technical expertise was exactly what these international projects needed, but his fear of speaking English was preventing him from contributing his valuable knowledge. Andreas felt frustrated and trapped, because he knew his reluctance to speak English was holding back both his personal career growth and his ability to help his company succeed in global markets. Andreas's transformation began in the most private and safe environment possible, his own bathroom mirror. One morning while getting ready for work, Andreas looked at himself in the mirror and made a decision that changed everything. He decided to start practicing English by speaking to his own reflection using the simplest phrases he could think of. Andreas began with basic self-introductions like, "Hello, my name is Andreas. I am an engineer. I work in Hamburg." This mirror practice felt awkward at first, but Andreas realized something important. Speaking to himself eliminated all the pressure and fear that came with real conversations. There was no one to judge him, no one to correct his pronunciation, and no consequences if he made mistakes. Andreas could practice at his own pace, repeat phrases as many times as he wanted, and gradually build confidence in a completely safe environment. Andreas started dedicating 5 minutes each morning to speaking simple English phrases to himself in the mirror. He would describe his plans for the day, talk about the weather, or explain basic engineering concepts using simple vocabulary. Today, I will work on a new project. The weather is nice today. This part connects to that part. Andreas was not trying to use complex technical language yet. He was simply getting comfortable with the feeling of English words coming out of his mouth. After several weeks of mirror practice, something remarkable happened. Andreas noticed that he was starting to think some of his technical ideas in English, especially concepts that he had been practicing in front of the mirror. When he was working on engineering problems at his desk, English phrases would occasionally appear in his thoughts naturally. This was the first sign that his mental barrier was beginning to dissolve. The breakthrough moment came when Andreas was invited to participate in a video call with a potential client from the United States. Instead of declining like he usually did, Andreas decided to accept the invitation. He spent extra time that morning practicing key phrases in his bathroom mirror, including technical explanations he might need to give during the meeting. This system improves efficiency. We can reduce costs by 20%. I can explain how this works. During the actual video call, Andreas was surprised to discover that the client was patient and genuinely interested in understanding his ideas. When Andreas struggled to find the right English word, the client would wait politely or ask clarifying questions that helped Andreas express his thoughts. Instead of judging Andreas's accent or mistakes, the client focused entirely on the valuable technical information Andreas was sharing. This positive experience shattered Andreas's mental barrier completely. He realized that his fears had been based on imaginary scenarios rather than reality. English-speaking professionals were not sitting in judgment of his pronunciation or vocabulary. They were focused on understanding his expertise and the solutions he could provide to their technical challenges. Andreas's confidence grew rapidly after this first successful video call. He started volunteering for more international projects and participating actively in English language meetings. His mirror practice had given him the foundation of comfort with speaking English, and his real-world experiences taught him that communication was much more forgiving and collaborative than he had imagined. What I find most inspiring about Andreas's story is how he discovered that the biggest obstacle to his English fluency was not his language skills but his own mental barriers. Andreas actually had more English ability than he realized. He just needed to overcome his fear of using it. The mirror practice served as a bridge between his private knowledge and his public confidence. Andreas's approach shows us that sometimes the most effective practice happens when we remove all external pressure and focus on building internal comfort with the language. By practicing privately first, Andreas developed the confidence he needed to succeed in real professional situations. His story proves that overcoming mental barriers is often more important than learning new vocabulary or perfecting pronunciation. The lesson from Andreas's experience is that you already have more English ability than you think you do. Often, the gap between understanding English and speaking English confidently is not about knowledge. It is about comfort and confidence. Private practice in a safe environment can help you bridge that gap and discover the English speaker that already exists within you. Now I want to share with you a systematic approach for building English-speaking confidence that takes all the pressure away from the learning process. This strategy is inspired by Andreas's mirror technique, but I am going to show you how to expand it into a complete confidence-building system that will prepare you for any English-speaking situation you might encounter in your life. The foundation of building confidence gradually is understanding that speaking to yourself in English is not strange or unusual. In fact, this is one of the most powerful techniques used by successful language learners and polyglots around the world. When you speak to yourself, you create a safe practice environment where you can experiment with words, try different pronunciations, and build fluency without any fear of judgment or embarrassment. Here is how to start building your confidence systematically. Begin with topics that you know very well and feel completely comfortable discussing in your native language. These might be subjects related to your work, your hobbies, your family, or your daily routine. The reason you start with familiar topics is that you already have all the ideas and opinions formed in your mind. You just need to learn how to express these existing thoughts in English. Choose one familiar topic and spend 5 minutes talking to yourself about it in English while you are alone. You might choose your job and say things like, I work in an office, I use a computer every day. I like my coworkers. My boss is very nice. I start work at 9 o'clock. Do not worry about using sophisticated vocabulary or complex sentence structures. Focus on expressing your real thoughts and experiences using simple, clear words. The key to this gradual approach is consistency rather than perfection. It is much better to spend 5 minutes every day talking to yourself in English than to have one long practice session once a week. Daily practice creates the habit and comfort that leads to genuine confidence. Your brain needs regular exposure to the feeling of producing English words and sentences to make it feel natural and automatic. As you become comfortable discussing familiar topics, gradually introduce new subjects into your solo speaking practice. If you started by talking about your work, you might next try describing your neighborhood, your favorite foods, or your plans for the weekend. Each new topic expands your comfort zone and gives you more areas where you feel confident expressing yourself in English. One powerful technique is to practice having imaginary conversations about topics you care about. Pretend you are explaining your job to a new friend, describing your hometown to a visitor, or sharing your opinion about a movie you recently watched. This prepares you for the types of conversations you might actually have with English speakers in real life, but you get to practice them first in a completely safe environment. Remember that every expert was once a beginner, and this includes native English speakers. When native speakers were children, they also went through a process of gradually building confidence with language. They made mistakes, they struggled to find words, and they practiced expressing their thoughts. The difference is that they did this practice naturally as part of growing up, while you are doing it intentionally as an adult learner. I want you to understand that confidence comes from experience, and experience comes from practice. Each time you speak English to yourself, you are building experience. Each time you successfully express a thought in English, even if it is just to your reflection in the mirror, you are proving to yourself that you can communicate in this language. These small victories accumulate over time to create genuine, lasting confidence. As your comfort with solo speaking grows, you can start preparing for real conversations by practicing specific scenarios. If you know you will need to introduce yourself in English, practice that introduction several times while you are alone. If you might need to ask for directions, practice those questions and responses. This preparation makes real conversations feel much less intimidating because you have already rehearsed the language you might need. The gradual approach also means being patient and kind with yourself throughout the process. Some days your English practice will feel easier and more natural than others. Some topics will be more challenging to discuss than others. This variation is completely normal and part of the learning process. Do not judge yourself for having difficult days or for making mistakes during your practice. One of the most important aspects of building confidence gradually is celebrating your progress along the way. Notice when English words come to you more quickly than before. Acknowledge when you successfully express a complex idea using simple English words. Recognize when you catch yourself thinking in English spontaneously. These are all signs that your confidence and fluency are growing. The beautiful thing about this gradual confidence-building approach is that it respects your natural learning pace while still challenging you to grow. You are not forcing yourself into uncomfortable situations before you are ready, but you are also not staying in your comfort zone forever. You are systematically expanding your English-speaking comfort zone at a pace that feels manageable and sustainable. Start today by choosing one familiar topic and spending 5 minutes talking to yourself about it in English. Do this every day for a week, then add a second topic. Within a month, you will notice a significant increase in your comfort and confidence with English speaking, and you will be ready to start applying these skills in real conversations with other people. As we reach this moment together, I want to take a step back and reflect on everything we have shared today about speaking English naturally. I want you to understand something profound about your learning journey that goes beyond techniques and strategies. Learning English is not just about acquiring a new skill. It is about discovering a new version of yourself, opening doors to connections you never imagined possible, and proving to yourself that you are capable of achieving things that once seemed impossible. Right now, sitting wherever you are, listening to my voice, you are already different from the person who started listening to this episode. You have new ideas about how to approach English. You have practical strategies that you can implement immediately. Most importantly, you have heard stories of real people like Maria, Thomas, Sophie, Marco, Elena, and Andreas, who transformed their English abilities by changing their approach rather than studying harder or longer. I want you to remember that your English learning journey is uniquely yours. You do not need to compare your progress to anyone else or feel pressure to reach fluency by a certain deadline. Some people might feel comfortable speaking after a few months of practice, while others might need a year or longer to feel confident. Both paths are completely normal and valid. What matters is not how quickly you progress, but that you continue moving forward consistently, even when the steps feel small. The stories I have shared with you today prove something beautiful about language learning. None of these people succeeded because they had special talent or perfect study conditions. They succeeded because they found ways to integrate English naturally into their daily lives, and they were patient with themselves throughout the process. Maria discovered that simple words create powerful connections. Thomas learned that thinking in English during daily activities builds natural fluency. Sophie realized that authenticity matters more than perfection. When I think about what it really means to speak English naturally, I realize it has nothing to do with having a perfect accent or knowing every vocabulary word in the dictionary. Speaking English naturally means being able to express your genuine thoughts, feelings, and ideas in a way that creates understanding and connection with other people. It means feeling comfortable being yourself while using English as your tool for communication. The small moments of practice that we have discussed today might seem insignificant when you think about them individually. 5 minutes of inner narration while drinking coffee. 3 simple phrases repeated during your commute. Listening to English content about topics you enjoy. Practicing conversation with yourself in the mirror. These moments feel small, but they accumulate into something transformative over time. Think of your English practice like drops of water slowly filling a container. Each individual drop seems tiny and unimportant, but over time, those drops combine to fill the entire container. Your daily English moments work the same way. Each simple phrase you practice, each English song you listen to, each moment you think in English adds to your growing fluency, until one day you realize that the container of your English ability is overflowing with natural, confident communication. I want you to promise me something right now. Promise me that you will be gentle with yourself throughout this journey. There will be days when English feels easy and natural, and there will be days when it feels difficult and frustrating. There will be moments when you feel proud of your progress, and moments when you feel discouraged about how much more you want to learn. All of these experiences are part of the natural process of language acquisition. When you have difficult days with English, remember that every single person who speaks English fluently today has experienced those same challenges. Native speakers went through years of making mistakes, struggling to find words, and feeling frustrated with communication when they were children. The difference is that their learning happens so gradually that they do not remember the struggle. Your learning is happening consciously, which means you are aware of both the challenges and the victories. Celebrate every small victory along your English journey. When you successfully use a phrase you have been practicing, when you understand something in English that you would not have understood last month, when you catch yourself thinking in English spontaneously, these are all significant achievements that deserve recognition. These victories prove that your consistent practice is creating real changes in your language ability. The most important insight I want to leave with you today is that English fluency is not a destination you arrive at suddenly. It is a gradual process of becoming more and more comfortable with expressing yourself in this language. You are already on this journey, and every day you practice, you move further along the path toward natural, confident English communication. Your English journey is an investment in your future self. The person you will become through learning English will have opportunities, relationships, and experiences that are not available to you today. The confidence you build through mastering this challenge will serve you in many areas of your life beyond language learning. The patience and persistence you develop will help you achieve other goals that feel difficult right now. Right now, in this moment, you have everything you need to begin transforming your English abilities. You have practical techniques that work for real people in real situations. You have inspiring examples of others who started exactly where you are now and achieved the fluency they dreamed of. Most importantly, you have the desire to improve and the willingness to take consistent action toward your goals. My dear English learners, as we come to the end of our time together today, I feel so grateful that you chose to spend these moments with me on the English Talk community. I know you have many choices about how to spend your time, And the fact that you invested this time in improving your English shows me how committed you are to creating positive changes in your life. This commitment alone tells me that you have what it takes to achieve the natural English fluency you dream about. Let me remind you of the incredible journey we have taken together today. We discovered through Maria's story that simple words create more powerful connections than complicated vocabulary. We learned from Thomas that thinking in English during daily activities transforms your brain's relationship with the language. Sophie taught us that authenticity and genuine communication matter infinitely more than grammatical perfection. Marco showed us how to create English learning opportunities anywhere in the world by connecting the language to our existing passions and interests. Elena's experience revealed the power of gentle, consistent exposure through activities we genuinely enjoy, like listening to audiobooks during commute time. Andreas demonstrated that our biggest barriers are often mental rather than linguistic, and that private practice can build the confidence we need for real-world communication. Through all these stories, we have seen that ordinary people with busy lives and limited time can achieve extraordinary results by making small, smart changes to their daily routines. The 6 practical strategies we explored today give you a complete toolkit for developing natural English fluency. The inner narrator technique turns every moment of your day into potential English practice. Conscious repetition makes useful phrases automatically available when you need them. Creating your English environment surrounds you with the language naturally. Building confidence gradually removes fear and pressure from the learning process. Most importantly, embracing clarity over perfection frees you to communicate authentically and effectively. Right now, I want you to make a commitment to yourself and to our English learning community. Choose one single strategy from today's episode that resonates most strongly with you. Maybe it is the inner narrator technique that Thomas used so successfully. Perhaps it is creating your English environment like Marco did with his cooking videos and phone settings. Or maybe it is the conscious repetition practice that can make English phrases flow naturally from your mind to your mouth. Whatever strategy speaks to you most powerfully, I want you to commit to trying it for the next 7 days. Just 7 days of consistent practice with one technique. This is not overwhelming. This is not asking too much of your busy schedule. This is simply taking the first concrete step toward the English fluency that you know you deserve to achieve. I would love to hear from you about which strategy you are going to implement first. Please take a moment right now to share in the comments below which technique from today's episode you are most excited to try. Tell our community what drew you to that particular approach and how you plan to integrate it into your daily routine. Your comment might inspire someone else who is feeling uncertain about where to begin their own English transformation. When you share your commitment publicly with our community, something powerful happens. You create accountability that helps you follow through on your intentions. You also become part of a supportive network of learners who understand exactly what you are experiencing and who genuinely want to see you succeed. This community connection can make all the difference between starting strong and sustaining your progress over time. If you found value in today's episode, if these stories and strategies have given you hope and practical tools for improving your English, please show your support by subscribing to the English Talk Community channel. When you subscribe, you join thousands of other dedicated English learners from around the world who are committed to achieving natural fluency through practical, enjoyable methods that fit into real life. Your subscription also ensures that you will not miss future episodes where we will continue exploring proven strategies for English fluency. I am already preparing content about pronunciation confidence, conversation skills, and advanced listening techniques that will build perfectly on what we have covered today. Every episode of the English Talk Community is designed to give you practical tools you can use immediately to accelerate your English learning progress. I also encourage you to share this episode with anyone in your life who is also learning English or who has expressed interest in improving their language skills. Sometimes the most powerful motivation comes from starting a journey alongside a friend, family member, or colleague. When you share knowledge that can help others, you also reinforce your own learning and commitment to growth. Before we say goodbye today, I want to leave you with one final thought that I hope will stay with you long after this episode ends. You already have everything within you that you need to master English naturally. You have intelligence, creativity, persistence, and the desire to grow. The techniques and strategies are simply tools that help you access and develop the English-speaking potential that already exists inside you. Trust in your ability to learn, grow, and achieve the English fluency you desire. Believe that consistent small actions create remarkable transformations over time. Have confidence that your unique journey toward English mastery will unfold exactly as it should, bringing you opportunities and connections that will enrich your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. Your English fluency journey starts with believing in yourself, and I believe in you completely. Thank you for being part of the English Talk community today. Until we meet again in the next episode, keep practicing, keep believing in yourself, and keep moving forward on your path to natural English fluency. You have got this, and I am here supporting you every step of the way.